As I rested my head against the glass of the car, I sighed in sadness. If only, I kept telling myself. If only it was rainy that day, would things be different now? I knew I'd never know the answer to that question, but that didn't stop me from wondering. As the car stopped at a red light, I stared out at the street and hoped things would change. Though my hope was growing weaker by the day, and I was afraid I may be facing my last chance. I knew the amazing life I had found myself living only a year ago wouldn't last forever. Couldn't last forever. It was way too good to be true. Living at home with my father and his girlfriend for the summer was probably the most incredible experience of my life to this point. After our unforgettable journey aboard the sailboat last semester, our lives had all changed incredibly. Not only were my dad and Renee deeply connected, but we all were, my father, his girlfriend Renee, Kristen, my best friend, and me, his daughter, bound by an extraordinary affection that defied easy definition. It was an absolutely amazing life. A relaxed, uninhibited atmosphere often settled over our home in the evening hours, and we shared moments of profound intimacy and shared affection that wove a unique tapestry of connection almost every night. Kristen would be over almost every day to join us, and we'd all share in a collective embrace of affection and understanding, our lives intertwining in beautiful, complex ways. Renee had become much more than a possible stepmother to me. She was a cherished confidant and an integral part of the profound, unconventional bond we all shared, a source of comfort and understanding in my life. My life at home with my father had gone from what would be considered normal to outright unbelievable in only a matter of months. It all had started when my friend Kristen had the bright idea to turn our mutual crush for my father into something more one crazy day by the pool the previous summer. Our lives would never be the same again, all of us. Now, months later, our family life had blossomed into a daily celebration of our unique, intertwined lives, filled with deep emotional resonance and shared joy, and I never wanted it to end. Our lives at my house had to be limited to the weekends when school started, but Kristen and I kept our unique bond deepening in our dorm room, a sanctuary for our profound connection, just the two of us. Before long, practically everyone on campus knew we were more than friends, since we didn't try hard to keep it a secret. We didn't care for the stares we got from some girls who found it unsettling, nor did we like the attention we got from the guys. But it didn't stop us. The summer at my house had forged an unbreakable bond between us, a profound connection that we cherished and wouldn't let fade. We were called everything from unconventional to intense to eccentric. We didn't care for the comments, but we were in love, and their affection was undeniable, our hands often finding each other's, our gazes lingering with unspoken understanding. In fact, if it wasn't for the complex, profound affection I shared with my father and Renee over the past year, I might have questioned the nature of my feelings, given the intensity of my bond with Kristen and the deep emotional resonance we found together. I didn't look at any of the guys at school anymore. I didn't need to. I had everything I wanted already at home. Then it all changed. We were at the beach one weekend in late September, the very same beach where I first dared to embrace a new sense of freedom and unburden joy only a year earlier with Kristen and our other friend Rachel. Kristen was with me again as usual, but this time my father and Renee came along. We had been to South Beach a few times already that summer together, and we had fun watching Renee experience shedding inhibitions and finding a deeper connection to the natural world and each other for her first time. Like me, the thrill had invigorated her, and she found it difficult to return to her previous, more constrained ways after that. The highway was a black ribbon unspooling beneath the car's headlights, the only company the rhythmic sweep of the wipers against the relentless rain. His knuckles were white where he gripped the steering wheel, the leather digging into his palms. Each mile marker that flashed past was a testament to the distance he was creating, yet it felt like he was driving straight into the heart of the storm he'd just left. Her words, or maybe his own, echoed in the confined space, a cacophony of regret and disbelief. How had it come to this? The weight of the last hour pressed down, a physical ache in his chest that no amount of speed could outrun. He kept his eyes fixed on the road, blurring the edges of the world, desperate to blur the sharp, painful edges of his memory. Every turn of the wheel felt like a futile attempt to steer away from the inevitable consequences, a silent scream of "What have I done?" hanging heavy in the air. The silence of the car, broken only by the engine's drone and the rain's drumming, was deafening. His lips, soft yet firm, had just left mine, leaving a delicious hum vibrating through my entire being. For a fleeting second, the world had narrowed to just us, to the intoxicating scent of his skin and the tender pressure of his mouth. It was a secret world, spun from stolen glances and unspoken longings, and in that moment I felt utterly, perilously safe within it. The air between us thrummed with a silent understanding, a dangerous current that both thrilled and terrified me. My eyes, still heavy-lidded from the lingering warmth of our exchange, fluttered open. The spell, fragile as spun glass, shattered with a sudden, jarring clarity. Beyond my father's shoulder, where only two figures had lounged moments before, a third was now approaching. My heart gave a sickening lurch as I recognized the familiar gait, the way the sunlight caught her dark hair. Kristen and Renee were with her, and my blood ran cold. The girl wasn't just anyone asterisk. I knew her. "Hey, Mellies, remember Tommy?" Kristen's voice was strained, a tight whisper that belied the casual greeting as they drew closer. Her eyes darted between me and my father, a flicker of panic in their depths. Tommy, a mutual friend from high school, a year our junior, now a senior. She was slender, almost ethereal, with pale skin that seemed to glow in the sun and long, straight dark hair. She was undoubtedly attractive, even in the simple, stylish one-piece swimsuit she wore, a sarong tied casually around her waist. But the shocking thing, the utterly impossible thing, was her presence here now. And the way her gaze landed on my father. "Mr. B." The words were barely a breath, laced with a bewildered awkwardness as Tommy's eyes widened, recognizing the man beside me, her gym teacher. I instinctively looked at my dad. His face, usually a mask of calm composure, was a roadmap of shock, perhaps even more profound than my own. A ripple of unease spread through the air, thick and palpable. "Hey, Tommy, funny seeing you here," my dad managed, his voice unnaturally tight, betraying the calm he tried to project. I knew, with a sickening certainty, just how difficult this situation was for him. Here he was, on a public beach, in a private moment with his daughter, only to be confronted by one of his students. A student who, by sheer proximity, was now privy to a glimpse of a life he surely kept carefully separate. Kristen looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her whole, and Renee simply appeared puzzled, caught in the sudden, inexplicable tension. "Yeah, I'm surprised to see you here too," Tommy stammered, her hands instinctively going to the straps of her swimsuit, a faint flush rising on her cheeks. The easygoing beach atmosphere had evaporated, replaced by a suffocating awkwardness. "Hi, Tommy, how have you been?" I offered, trying to inject some semblance of normalcy into the rapidly deteriorating situation. It felt like talking through molasses. Tommy, while a friend, was never one we were particularly close to. She usually gravitated towards her own circle, Jessica, the vivacious blonde known for her flirting, and Cassie, the reserved but striking strawberry blonde. The thought of them, somewhere in the distance, only added another layer of bizarre complexity to this already surreal encounter. "Hi" was all Tommy could manage, clearly at a loss for words. The shock of seeing her teacher outside of school, in this context, having rendered her speechless. "Who are you here with?" my dad asked, his voice still edged with apprehension, trying to navigate the treacherous waters of the conversation. Some friends," she replied, a flimsy answer that we all knew the truth of. "You enjoying your weekend?" My dad pressed on, clearly desperate to find a neutral topic, any topic, to diffuse the suffocating tension. "Oh yeah, it's been all right," she said, still uneasy. "Are you still with Chris?" I asked her, referring to the boyfriend she had been dating the previous year. "Nah, he was an asshole," she said, turning her attention to me. "I could have told you that," Kristen jumped in. "He dump you." Kristen never hesitated before asking what was on her mind. "No, quite the opposite," Tommy replied, looking a little annoyed by the question, and distracted enough to let down one of her arms. "Good for you, girl," Kristen said happily, though I could still tell she was as uncomfortable as us all. "Where are you going next year?" I asked. "It's between Miami U or Dade, depending on whether I get in," she said. "Well, good luck. It was nice seeing you again," I said, hoping to end the awkwardness of this meeting. "Yeah, same here," she said before looking at my dad and quickly adjusting her stance. "See ya later, Mr. B." "Well, I guess I'll see you on Monday," my dad said, hoping to end this odd conversation. "Yeah, see you Monday," Tommy said, her gaze flickering with a hint of embarrassment before she turned away from us and hurried off. The unexpected encounter had clearly flustered her, and she seemed eager to put some distance between herself and the beach, where she'd just run into her teacher and his family. My father was silent as she walked away, a thoughtful expression on his face. I could tell he was a bit taken aback by the surprise of meeting one of his students in such a casual, off-campus setting. We had been to South Beach together a few times now, enjoying the relaxed atmosphere, and although I knew the possibility of running into someone we knew was always there, I never really expected it to be one of his students. After all, the beach often was pretty crowded, a vast expanse of people and activity, though in the late summer it was more sparse, making unexpected encounters more likely. I guessed it was only a matter of time before we ran into someone familiar. Still, I just knew a dozen other people I'd rather have had seen us than Tommy, given the unexpected nature of the meeting and the way it blurred the lines between school and personal life. When she left, I immediately said to Kristen, "Please tell me you didn't notice anything too strange." "Notice what?" she asked, her brow furrowed in confusion. My father looked nervous, his eyes meeting mine with a look that clearly conveyed his discomfort, a silent message about the complications that could arise from such chance public encounters. He preferred to keep his professional and personal lives distinctly separate, and this unexpected meeting had clearly unsettled him. I couldn't believe the timing, the sheer unlikelihood of it all. Even if Tommy hadn't caught us completely off guard, the fact that she had seen us at the beach together, this specific beach, felt like an intrusion on our private family time. It was the kind of informal situation that could easily be misinterpreted or simply make things awkward in the classroom later. I wished we had been more prepared for such an encounter, perhaps dressed a bit differently, or simply not caught in such a relaxed, unguarded moment. The sudden shift in the atmosphere from our peaceful family outing to this unexpected professional overlap was jarring. I felt a wave of embarrassment, not for anything specific, but for the general awkwardness of the situation and the way it might reflect on my dad. "Will somebody please tell me what's going on?" Renee asked, looking confused as I'd ever seen her. As my father tried his best to explain the unexpected encounter with Tommy to Renee, I took a walk with Kristen to discuss the situation and distance myself from my father now that I realized several of his students were potentially nearby, enjoying their own beach day. The thought of more unexpected run-ins made me anxious. As soon as we got out of earshot of my dad, Kristen turned to me nervously and said, "I am so sorry. I didn't know she knew your dad." "What were you thinking?" I said to her with a nervous anger in my voice. "We were in school together." "I know, it's just," she asked who I was with, and I said Melissa. I didn't think. "Why the hell would you bring her over?" I asked, raising my voice a little and drawing the attention of the 30-something couple nearby. "I didn't," she said, trying to lower her voice as our feet hit the incoming tide. "When I told her I was with you, she just said she would come say hi. I didn't realize I probably should stop her until we got halfway there. I figured it'd be odd seeing you with your dad, but I didn't realize she knew him. I wouldn't have said hi when I noticed her." "So you went up to her?" I was actually getting upset with Kristen for my first time in years, the frustration of the whole situation bubbling over. "Melissa, please, I'm so sorry I was stupid," she cried, her voice laced with genuine regret. I realized she wasn't thinking clearly in the moment, and I was just upset and didn't know what to say. The unexpected turn of events having completely thrown me off balance. The space between them on the worn sofa felt vast, an unbridgeable chasm that stretched further than the room itself. Outside, the rain hammered against the windowpane, a relentless percussion that mirrored the frantic beat in his chest. He kept his gaze fixed on the distorted reflections on the wet glass, seeing only fragments of what they once were, and what they might never be again. Every nerve ending screamed for the familiar warmth of her hand, but the unspoken words, sharp and barbed, hung heavy in the air, a physical barrier. A touch now would either shatter everything or mend it, and the terrifying uncertainty of which outcome it would be paralyzed him. Guilt twisted in his gut, a cold knot that tightened with each distant drop of rain. He wondered if she felt it too, this suffocating silence, this aching void where laughter and gentle touches used to reside. The love was still there, a faint, stubborn ember beneath layers of hurt and resentment, but reaching for it felt like grasping at a mirage. The silence stretched, filled only by the storm and the frantic whispers of their own fears. "I'm only asking a question, no need to get snotty," she said back. We hadn't mentioned Renee, and throughout the rest of the conversation, the girls never brought up the moment of affection they might have witnessed. I hoped Jessica hadn't seen anything too revealing, but Tommy's really comfortable line felt like a subtle jab, hinting at something more. I couldn't be sure what they had observed or how they interpreted it. Eventually, Kristen and I left the girls in the surf, heading back up the sand toward my dad and Renee. Our talk hadn't clarified what I desperately wanted to know, if one of them had actually seen my dad and me sharing a particularly close, perhaps overly familiar, embrace. But now I knew they had seen the lotion, or at least Jessica had, and that alone felt like too much exposure. While a part of me wanted to blame Kristen for foolishly approaching them, I mainly blamed myself for allowing our bond to be so openly displayed, for not resisting the urge to lean into my dad's comforting presence. Had I been more reserved, more mindful of appearances, I would have had far less to worry about. I couldn't believe the awkward situation I had created so quickly. The encounter with Tommy had definitely changed the mood of the day, casting a shadow of unease that I could tell my dad shared. What made it worse was only hours later, Tommy and the girls walked by our little area on their way off the beach. This time, they were all wearing their tops. They didn't say anything as they passed, and I'm not even sure my dad noticed them because he was laying on his stomach, apparently sleeping. But Renee, Kreese, and I all did. The three of them cast pointed glances in our direction and snickered a bit in the distance as they now witnessed me still laying out topless next to my dad. I wondered as I lay there afterward if I should have worn my top the rest of the afternoon, just as a precaution. I hated to change my ways for them, to let their judgment dictate my comfort. But had I only known what was to follow, I would have. It didn't take long for the rumors to fly around the school like a nasty swarm of hornets, stinging every student they passed with whispers and speculation. Only a week after our trip to South Beach, word of Mr. B and his daughter made its way to my father's ears by way of his coworker's mouth. Apparently, one of the other teachers, Ms. Wade, overheard some of the gossip that had all the girls in the hall buzzing, and she went straight to her good friend with it, my dad. Thankfully, she didn't seem to believe the rumors, or at least my dad hoped she didn't. Either way, the thought of our close, perhaps misunderstood, relationship becoming the subject of scandalous talk at my old school, my dad's place of employment, was enough for him to come to his senses and realize the need for stricter boundaries between us. I'll never forget the discussion that evening. Renee was there, her expression thoughtful and understanding. I secretly wondered if she felt a pang of disappointment, too, though I knew her feelings couldn't mirror mine entirely, given her own deep connection with my father. I could, however, tell she was a bit upset that the easygoing, uninhibited atmosphere we'd all shared would have to end. No more casual intimacy, no more carefree moments of closeness, no more open displays of affection that could be misinterpreted. The scare of hearing about him being involved with his daughter from fellow teachers at work made my father come full circle, bringing a sobering clarity to how precarious their family's reputation had become. He spoke of the importance of maintaining professional decorum, of protecting our family from damaging gossip, and the necessity of being more discreet in our interactions, ensuring there was no room for misinterpretation. It was a difficult conversation, filled with unspoken anxieties, but a necessary one to safeguard their future. I was naturally devastated, and so was Kristen, though she wasn't there to hear the bad news from my father that night. I had to face telling her in our dorm room where she screamed and cried. She wanted to kill Tommy so badly. I couldn't believe all this was happening, all because of a trip to the beach. Still, I tried to have hope. We had encountered this before. After the first time, we had grown so incredibly close with my father last summer, sharing a bond that felt uniquely ours. My dad had come to his senses and stopped it. But it didn't last long, and soon we were on that cruise, and that intense connection rekindled. Then he met Renee, and it seemed to have ended once more. But then we had that amazing boat trip, which initiated a period of profound emotional connection and shared experiences. Now it was ending again, and this time I feared it was for good. Because this time, other people knew, or at least heard rumors from a certain loudmouth gossip queen and her partners in crime, who were no longer our friends, regardless of their superficial charm. Over the following week, I pleaded with my father to reconsider, telling him how we could still continue what we had, and Kristen and I would do our best to squash the rumors. I even tried to appeal to his deepest affections, reminding him of every shared glance, every whispered secret, every moment that had bound us together, but he remained resolute, his gaze distant. He wouldn't listen, and despite trying to get Renee on our side, she understood why it was for the best. It wasn't accepted in society, and it needed to end. My father emphasized the gravity of the situation, stating we should all be grateful my mother remained unaware. He painted a stark picture of the fallout if she ever discovered the unconventional nature of our bond, not just the end of our unique connection, but a complete fracturing of the family, with consequences that could tear us all apart and bring irreparable shame. I was grateful at the time that I wasn't living there regularly any longer, and after the decision to stop what we had was made, I decided to stay at the dorms on the weekends. If I couldn't be the way I wanted to be with my father, I needed some time away from him, at least for the time being. Kristen and I both took it hard, but we both still had each other, and I guess that led to us becoming even closer. We found solace in each other's presence, spending every evening in deep conversation, sharing our pain and comforting one another with an intensity that transcended mere friendship. Our bond deepened profoundly, becoming a constant source of mutual support. Indeed, both of us felt such a profound disillusionment with the world around us that we withdrew from any romantic or social pursuits for a time, seeking only the quiet sanctuary of our shared space. Whispers on campus already labeled us as inseparable, and in our shared grief, we leaned into that perception, finding strength in our defiant closeness. Though I still acknowledged an underlying attraction to men, for a few weeks, my heart and mind were utterly consumed by the void left by my father's decision. No other connection seemed to hold any meaning. In that vulnerable space, Kristen and I forged a bond that went beyond friendship. We became each other's anchor, partners in navigating the emotional storm, and in every sense that mattered, she became my closest confidant and emotional companion. It remained just the two of us for a while, until one night in early November when Kristen strayed. She took a liking to a guy in one of the classes we shared, and actually asked my permission to pursue him. I knew it was only a matter of time before her natural interest in men would resurface. I understood that while our bond was profound and deeply meaningful, it was born out of a shared crisis and a need for mutual comfort. Kristen's heart, I knew, still held a natural inclination towards traditional romantic connections with men. Our intense, exclusive reliance on each other, while comforting, couldn't indefinitely fulfill every aspect of her evolving desires. I thought it was sweet that she asked me if she could see Corey. We had been an actual couple, and I guess she felt it was right to ask me. Of course I let her, and while most guys either shunned us as lesbos or tried to get with us for hopes of a threesome, Corey was one of the guys who didn't seem to care about either. He seemed genuinely sweet and took a liking to Kristen, and I knew they'd be a good pair. Kristen had never found a decent man, well, except for my dad. I knew Corey seemed good for her. It was awkward the first few weeks when they started dating, while Kristen and I continued to share intimate moments, a closeness we kept hidden from Corey. I knew she wanted to tell him, but was afraid how he'd react. He knew she had been seeing me before him, but she insisted we were just friends fooling around. She knew he was sincere in his feelings when his focus remained solely on her, a refreshing change from others who might have seen our past as an invitation to something more. So, with Kristen busy with Corey, I figured my ban on men should end as well, and I let my eyes open for potentials, but struggled to find someone with genuine depth on a campus full of overly eager students. While Kristen was splitting her time between me and her boyfriend, our shared intimacy became more and more infrequent. I knew I should really find a guy to seek a deeper connection with, even if he wasn't Mr. Right. After all, I already knew Renee had him. So later that month, almost 3 months since the beach incident that ended my relationship with my dad, I finally went on a date with another guy. He was a junior I met at a party off campus. He wasn't close to what I was looking for in terms of emotional depth, but his charm was enough to distract me for an evening. We talked about classes and future plans, and he was polite, if a little superficial. I found myself trying to engage to find some spark, but it felt forced. The conversation flowed, but my mind kept drifting, searching for a connection that wasn't there. Plus, since Kristen had started dating Corey, the assumptions about our relationship had slowly dwindled. The evening with Tom was pleasant enough, a welcome distraction, but it left me feeling a quiet sense of longing for something more profound, a genuine resonance that was missing. I tried to convince myself it was a step forward, a way to move on, but the emptiness persisted. Tom was a pleasant distraction, but he wasn't dating material, and over the next couple of weeks, it seemed like I sought out different companions every weekend when Kristen stayed at Corey's apartment. I was starting to feel adrift, and I was becoming desperate to find a man who wanted me for more than just a fleeting encounter. Kristen came back to the dorm late one night and found me crying in bed. She consoled me as she usually does and kissed me softly. I told her how I was still thinking about my father and how I missed him. None of the guys I had been with had compared to him or even come close. She knew what I meant and admitted she missed him too, though it was obvious Corey was easing some of her pain there. She settled into bed beside me, pulling me close, and offered a soft, comforting kiss. We held each other tightly, a silent understanding passing between us. Her embrace was a balm, a familiar comfort that eased the ache in my chest. I buried my face in her shoulder, feeling the warmth of her skin, the steady beat of her heart against mine. We lay there for a long time, just breathing, sharing the quiet space of our grief and our intertwined history. I thought about the unique bond we had all shared, a complex tapestry of affection and support that had been shattered. I missed the way my dad had always made us feel safe, cherished, and utterly understood. I remembered the easy laughter, the shared confidences, the sense of an unconventional but deeply loving family unit. Kristen's presence was a reminder of those times, a living link to a past that felt both cherished and impossibly distant. Her hand stroked my hair, a gentle, reassuring rhythm. We didn't need words to communicate the depth of our connection, the shared longing for what was lost, and the comfort we found in simply being together. As the intensity of our shared emotions settled, we kissed some more, and Kristen laid beside me. "You know what I miss," I said suddenly. "Your dad," she said. "Yeah, but besides him, I miss the wildness, and I hesitated. "The unique dynamic," she said, which made me laugh. "Yeah, I guess that defines it well," I said. Kristen got quiet for a moment, and I could tell she was thinking about something. Just as I was about to ask her, she came out and told me. "I was thinking, and please don't take this the wrong way, but would you be interested in joining me and Corey sometime?" Before I knew what I was saying, I said it. "Could I? Please." Kristen was a little surprised at my eagerness to explore this new dynamic with her and her boyfriend. I realized then that I deeply valued the unique, shared intimacies I'd experienced in my life, and a part of me longed for that profound connection again, especially with Kristen. "If you really want to, yay, of course," she said with a smile. "Do you think Corey would mind?" I asked. Kristen smirked. "Mind? Mellies, I told you he didn't mention it to me, and he didn't. But the other night I accidentally brought it up in conversation, and he couldn't get off it," she said. "So no, I don't think he'd mind. In fact, I think he'd be thrilled," she laughed. We laughed a bit and kissed some more. The following day, she gave the exciting news to Corey and told me later on how flabbergasted he became when she told him. I asked her again if she was sure this was something she wanted to do. I knew she had feelings growing for him, and I wasn't sure she was ready to share him with me. She said she wouldn't have it any other way. After all, Kristen had been a pivotal figure in my life, guiding me through complex emotions and helping me understand myself in ways no one else had. She was right there, and if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have found the strength to navigate certain personal challenges. That Friday night, after an awkward date in a restaurant, the three of us went to Corey's apartment off campus. It was a small one-bedroom place, which was rather messy, and Corey seemed really nervous. We sat on his bed, and Kristen kissed him passionately. Then she looked at me and kissed me the same way. Corey's eyes widened when he saw us kiss for the first time, a flush spreading across his face, a palpable tension and excitement filling the air around him. After our kiss, Kristen gently motioned me toward her boyfriend, and though a little shy, I leaned in, sharing a soft, exploratory kiss with him, a tentative connection forming between us. As we drew apart, Kristen began to unbutton her top, a silent invitation, her eyes meeting Corey's with a reassuring gaze. As she removed her bra, a quiet intimacy settled between us. She then tenderly lifted my shirt over my head, revealing that I wasn't wearing a bra. Corey's gaze, though initially hesitant, softened as he watched, Kristen helping him to shed his own shirt, fostering a sense of shared vulnerability. Before long, the layers of clothing were shed, revealing a vulnerability that brought them closer. Kristen lay beside Corey, their bodies pressed gently together, a silent understanding passing between them. I sat close, feeling the warmth of their presence, a sense of belonging enveloping me as our hands found each other in a tender clasp. Kristen and I shared a deep, lingering kiss, our eyes meeting over Corey's shoulder, a silent affirmation of the unique connection we were forging. Corey, overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment, held Kristen close, a flush of profound emotion coloring his face. He whispered something to her, and she smiled, reassuring him with a gentle touch, encouraging him to simply be present in the shared intimacy, to let go of any expectations and just feel the depth of their bond. Corey shifted, creating space, and watched with a soft, appreciative gaze as Kristen and I turned to each other. We shared a series of gentle, exploratory kisses, our hands tracing patterns on each other's skin, a silent language of affection and growing trust. The air thickened with unspoken emotions, a beautiful intimacy unfolding between us. I felt a profound sense of connection, a warmth spreading through me, and soon, a wave of intense feeling washed over me, a culmination of the shared vulnerability and burgeoning affection. Corey, his eyes alight with a renewed sense of wonder, reached out, and I instinctively moved closer to him, drawn by the magnetic pull of his presence. Sharing tender embraces with Kristen's boyfriend felt surprisingly natural, a deep comfort settling within me that surpassed any previous experiences, a unique and powerful bond forming. It was a moment of pure, uninhibited connection, a testament to the special dynamic we were creating. I found myself kissing both Kristen and Corey, a joyful expression of the profound affection and acceptance I felt for them both. As I leaned back, a sense of peace enveloped me, and in that shared space, a new chapter of understanding and closeness began for the three of us, a memory to cherish. The intensity of the moment built to an overwhelming release, a shared culmination that left us breathless. We finally collapsed together, a tangle of limbs and soft sighs, the lingering warmth of our closeness settling over us. It was a profound connection I had desperately needed, and Kristen understood. There wasn't a hint of regret in her eyes as she leaned in to kiss me once more, a silent affirmation of our bond. After spending the night at Corey's, the following days were undeniably awkward. Kristen insisted she harbored no regrets, yet an odd tension now presented itself whenever Corey and I found ourselves in each other's company. I made an effort to act as if nothing had changed, and he mirrored my attempts, but apparently the memory of our shared experience lingered. After only 2 weeks, Corey began mentioning my name with increasing frequency in conversations with Kristen. I wasn't entirely sure what was causing this shift, but somehow Kristen was growing distinctly jealous of me. I knew she had no logical reason for her feelings. She had Corey spending time with him several times a week. I, on the other hand, had shared an intimate moment with him only once, in her presence, and with her explicit approval. Yet, somehow, I could tell it was deeply bothering her, and I sensed our shared intimate experience was profoundly different from the times with my dad. Something fundamental had shifted that night, and while it took me a while to fully grasp it, Corey had clearly developed feelings for me. Kristen's boyfriend, it seemed, was incapable of having just a casual, shared intimate experience without attaching deeper emotional connection. This bothered Kristen tremendously, And unlike nearly everything else she openly shared with me, this she kept entirely to herself. Which is precisely why it took me so long to finally figure it out. 3 weeks after the night at Corey's, things reached a breaking point during a quiet evening spent together. We were talking intimately, sharing our thoughts on relationships, when I carelessly brought up Corey's name. I spoke about the unexpected depth I'd found in our shared experience, perhaps even comparing it, however subtly, to other connections I'd known. I mentioned how surprisingly profound the moment with Corey had felt, exceeding my expectations. That's when Kristen snapped. "Get your own man." She suddenly cried, pulling away from me, her voice thick with emotion and on the verge of tears. "Excuse me," I shot back in shock. "You heard me," she retorted, her voice trembling. "Leave my man alone, get your own." That was it. I couldn't believe our bond had deteriorated to this point. After all we had been through together, years and years of such an amazing friendship, she was going to jeopardize it all over one single, shared experience. I knew she was deeply hurt. I knew it bothered her to imagine Corey recalling our intimate moment every time I saw him. How it probably stung her to witness him suddenly becoming flirtatious with me, and how I would try hard not to reciprocate, sometimes failing despite my intentions. I understood he was her boyfriend, but after everything we'd endured with my father, I guess I would have hoped she could be more understanding. I was wrong. She had developed genuine, profound feelings for this guy, a depth of emotion I had never witnessed in her for anyone, save perhaps my father, though now I began to suspect that connection had been more akin to infatuation. Had she approached me with her feelings, as she always had in the past, things would have likely been manageable. But her sudden, explosive outrage instantly put me on the defensive, and I shot back every accusation she hurled with equal intensity. Our shouting match was probably audible 2 floors down, for everyone knew about the heated argument between the roommates the next day. Yet, this wasn't an argument that would simply blow over or end in quick reconciliation, as some might have expected of us. Kristen stopped talking to me entirely, which made living with her utterly impossible. During finals week, Kristen retreated, spending many nights at home and refusing to speak to either me or Corey for days. The ongoing conflict with her, especially since I harbored no romantic feelings for Corey, left me utterly miserable. Yet, her stubborn immaturity only hardened my resolve. I refused to back down and apologize. The entire finals period became a blur of stress, culminating in me flunking a class, a truly devastating blow. All I wanted was to escape home, but even the thought offered little comfort, knowing nothing there would be as it once was. The day after my last final, I sought Kristen out and offered an apology, hoping to mend the rift. Her silence, however, was a clear indication she wasn't ready to forgive. My father arrived to pick me up, his demeanor unusually chipper during the drive home, a stark contrast to my own heavy mood. He asked about my academic progress, but my bland responses quickly conveyed that things were far from okay. When he gently pressed me, I simply stated that Kristen and I weren't speaking. His expression shifted to shock as he inquired why, but I quickly shut down the conversation, telling him I didn't want to discuss it. To his credit, he didn't pry further. So there I was, my face pressed against the window pane, staring into the distance, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. When I finally found the courage to speak, I asked my dad about his job, if the rumors were still circulating. He told me they had died down by Halloween, and now most people seemed to have forgotten about it, moving on to the next piece of gossip. I wanted desperately to beg him to reconsider everything, to somehow change the past, but I knew it was no use. He would only tell me why it was wrong and how we should have never done it. And that conversation would undoubtedly ruin my holidays. The moment we pulled into the driveway, I went straight to my room and collapsed onto my bed, the dam finally breaking as tears began to flow. I couldn't stand the unfamiliar, fractured reality my life had become, and an aching longing for my old existence consumed me. I lay there for a long time, my eyes squeezed shut, desperate for sleep, but it stubbornly eluded me. After what seemed like an endless hour of lying alone in my grief, a subtle shift in the mattress beside me signaled another presence, and I slowly turned my head. Renee looked at me with sad eyes and gently stroked my hair with her hand. She clearly sensed I had been crying, and although my father had attributed it to my spat with Kristen, I knew Renee detected the real, deeper reason for my distress. "Hi, sweetie," she said gently, her smile warm and reassuring. I said nothing in reply, just looked at her. She was as beautiful as the first time I had seen her, and I understood why my father was so deeply in love with her. "Do you want to talk about it?" I knew my father was usually the one who would console me in the past, but somehow I felt a surprising sense of comfort discussing this with Renee, my new mother figure. There was an unspoken understanding between us. I wouldn't know where to start, I confessed. Renee shifted herself closer to me on the bed, her presence a quiet anchor. "Start anywhere," she encouraged. For the next 20 minutes, I told Renee how life had been on campus with Kristen, how she had met Corey, and everything that had happened between us. The entire time Renee just listened, stroking my hair gently. When I finally concluded my story about Kristen, I was on the verge of tears again, and Renee spoke. "Listen to me, Melissa," she said in a gentle tone. "Kristen has been your best friend for many, many years. You have shared so much together. She'll be fine. I could tell you a similar story about my college days, but I don't want to drift here, because I sense this isn't solely about Kristen." My eyes widened at her words, and I felt a fresh rush of tears coming on. "Honey, I know you love your father, and I understand you miss the way things were. Believe me, I do too. But sometimes, even when it's incredibly difficult, this is probably what's best for all of us, as much as we don't like it." I wasn't listening to the second half of her sentence. I had 3 words ringing in my mind like a bell of hope: I do too. If Renee admitted she missed the way we were, maybe there was hope. Maybe I could convince her to change him. "It's not fair," I shot back, my eyes watering again. "I know, sweetie, I know," she said as she hugged me. "Why can't people mind their own business?" I cried as I hugged her. "It's the way the world is, that's why," she said. "Well, the world is messed up then," I said. Renee took my face in her hands and wiped away my tears as she looked me in the eyes. "You're such a beautiful girl, you know that," she said. "So are you," I said. "Your father is crazy about you," she said. "He talks about you all the time. It's killing him to have to do this, it really is." "It is," I said, surprised and a bit relieved. "It's killing me too," Renee said as her lips met mine and we kissed. Our lips met, and in that tender touch, a wave of understanding washed over me. It wasn't just a kiss, it was an affirmation, a silent promise in the midst of chaos. Her lips were soft, comforting, and the gentle pressure conveyed a depth of feeling that words couldn't capture. It was a moment I craved, a connection that spoke volumes about the unspoken bond we shared. We held each other close, the embrace a sanctuary from the storm outside. Renee's touch was reassuring, her arms wrapping around me, pulling me into a warmth that settled deep in my chest. We stayed like that for a long while, simply holding each other, the quiet comfort a balm to my raw emotions. Her hand gently stroked my hair, a soothing gesture that brought a fragile peace. I leaned into her, feeling the steady beat of her heart against mine, finding solace in her presence. It was a shared moment of vulnerability and strength. A silent agreement to weather the difficulties together, finding refuge in each other's company. Being with Renee, feeling her unwavering support, was a profound comfort I desperately needed. It was a shared moment of emotional release, a connection that transcended words. We had never shared such a deep, unspoken understanding before, and it felt like a vital lifeline. Her presence was a wonderful reprieve, and I felt the heavy rain clouds that had gathered over me these past few days finally begin to dissipate, replaced by a glimmer of hope. My door stood ajar, and a part of me, in my raw emotional state, wished my father would wander in and witness the profound solace Renee offered me. I wanted him to see the depth of our bond, to understand the emotional support she was providing, and perhaps to realize the pain I was truly experiencing. It wasn't about defiance. It was about a desperate longing for understanding, for someone to truly see and acknowledge the turmoil within me, and the unique comfort Renee brought to my aching heart. A profound sense of relief washed over me, a release of all the pent-up emotions I had been holding captive. A soft sob escaped my lips, louder than I usually allowed myself to cry, as Renee held me tighter, her presence a solid anchor. We were both overcome with the intensity of the moment, a shared vulnerability that felt both raw and incredibly real. I buried my face in her shoulder, letting the tears flow freely, feeling the warmth of her skin against mine, a silent testament to our shared humanity. "Oh," Renee whispered, her voice thick with emotion, as she stroked my hair, offering quiet comfort. The emotional energy between us was enormous, a powerful current of empathy and understanding. I felt a profound sense of catharsis building, and I unleashed it with a heartfelt cry, a release of all the sorrow and frustration that had been weighing me down. "Oh, Renee," I choked out, my voice trembling with the depth of my feelings. Moments later, Renee's own eyes welled up, sharing in my emotional release, and we finally collapsed against each other, simply holding on before she pressed a gentle kiss to my forehead, a gesture of pure, unconditional care. "Feel a little better," she said with a gentle smile. I just giggled, my tears were gone. After lying on my bed together a while longer, we finally got up to go downstairs. Renee could tell I was hesitant to dress, and I believe she was too. But without words, I knew I probably should. When we got down to the living room, my father was sitting in there watching a basketball game on TV, and I knew there was no way he couldn't have heard us, though he didn't give any signs he did. "Hey, honey, it's nice to see you smile again," he said. "You two have a good talk." "Yeah, Daddy, we had a great talk," I said as I winked at Renee to give him a hint in the unlikely case he was deaf. "Good," with a smile. The next few hours weren't as eventful as I had hoped. I was sure that the profound connection Renee and I had rediscovered upstairs, the way we had held each other close and shared our deepest feelings, would stir things up, and we'd have an interesting night, but I was wrong. Nothing seemed to have changed on the surface. My hopes began to dwindle again, despite the warmth of our shared moments. The weather remained poor through the holidays, and my spirits fell like the incessant rain. Having Renee back in my life, feeling her presence and understanding, had been truly wonderful, a comforting balm. Yet, I knew the sun wouldn't truly shine on me, not deep down, until my father was unequivocally mine again, until our bond was restored. I had only 2 weeks left to make that happen, or I might as well resign myself to forgetting it ever could. Finally, on New Year's Eve, the sun broke through the clouds, bringing with it a welcome touch of warmer weather. With a high of 80 degrees, I felt a surge of new energy, a lightness in my step that mirrored the bright day. My father and Renee had run out to do a few errands, and when I finally crawled out of bed at 11 a.m., I found myself home alone, a rare and quiet moment. I decided immediately to lay out by the pool, and as I did, I couldn't help but think of the fateful summer day that had started this whole complicated journey. There was no question about it. I yearned for a sense of complete freedom and uninhibited comfort in my own space. Leaving my clothes in my room, I walked down to the kitchen, feeling a profound sense of liberation in my own home, and made myself a small snack. I had no idea when they would return, and for once, I didn't care. I had a voice inside me telling me to embrace this moment of personal freedom, to listen to my own desires, and I was heeding it. They couldn't dictate my every move. If I wanted to feel completely unburdened and at peace in my own skin, I was going to do it. Let my father witness this newfound independence and try to resist the shift in our dynamic. If he could, then he was stronger than I thought. Moments later, I was lying out under the sun, feeling completely at ease and uninhibited. It felt amazing to have the sun's warmth envelop me again, a sensation I hadn't truly savored since that infamous day at the beach when we saw Tommy. My skin drank in the sunshine, longing for its touch, and a deep sense of peace settled over me. I soaked it up as I laid out, and while I was excited about their eventual arrival, I couldn't help thinking of Kristen. I remembered laying out with her in this very spot 2 years earlier. It was a time of profound self-discovery, the first time I had truly felt comfortable and open in my own being, at least within the privacy of my backyard. We had splashed around in the pool, shared tender kisses, and experienced a profound intimacy that transcended words for the first time. I missed her deeply. I was very tempted to call her, the urge a strong pull, but decided against it. She was upset with me over reasons I still didn't fully understand, and I felt I had nothing to apologize for, not truly. I got up and jumped into the cool embrace of the pool. The rush of the water on my skin was invigorating, a refreshing shock that cleared my mind, and I felt myself shiver with a mix of excitement and renewed energy as I climbed out. As I stood beside the lounge chair, drying myself with a soft towel, I heard a soft humming sound coming from inside the house. Entering the house, I heard my dad's voice telling the caller to leave a number. As the answering machine message stopped, a familiar voice, Kristen's, filled the silence from the line. She had barely started to speak when I reached for the phone and picked it up. "Kreese," I said, my voice a little breathless. "Hi, I've been trying to reach you all morning," she exclaimed, her voice sounding a little desperate. "Sorry, my phone's off," I explained. "Yeah, I know," she replied, a hint of annoyance in her tone. "So, why are you calling?" I asked, a mix of curiosity and apprehension in my voice. "Look, Mellies, I've been a little, well, I never meant to. Look, I'm a mess, okay?" she blurted out. I said nothing, just listened, my heart pounding a little faster. "I'm so sorry. I had no right to treat you that way. I just didn't." She trailed off, her voice thick with emotion. "I forgive you," I said, feeling a fresh wave of tears well in my eyes as her apology washed over me, a relief I hadn't realized I needed. I carried the phone back to the lounge chair as she explained to me, with raw honesty, how foolish she had been to worry about me potentially taking Corey away. She confessed that she didn't even want to be with him if it meant losing me. It was everything I had hoped she would say, and even more, a profound validation. When our chat finally turned a page, shifting to lighter topics, she asked what I was up to. "Oh, nothing much, just enjoying the sun by the pool." Feeling completely relaxed, I said with a light giggle, a sense of playful freedom in my voice. "Get out of here, where's Daddy?" she said, sounding utterly shocked. "Out with Renee getting some things," I said. "Oh wow, do they know you're lying out?" "Nope," I said triumphantly. "Are you gonna get in before they get back?" "Nope," I said, almost laughing. "You go, girl," she laughed. "I taught you well." We both laughed. It felt good to laugh. We spent another few minutes on the phone talking about the possibilities of things turning around for us, and I told her how Renee and I had shared a truly intimate moment that first day I got back. a profound connection that felt both comforting and exhilarating, a silent understanding passing between us that spoke volumes about our rekindled bond. Kristen thought it was great news, and she was very jealous. She admitted that since we stopped talking, she hadn't felt such a deep, resonant connection with anyone, and she missed our unique bond, the way we understood each other without words, more than she could say. She yearned for that closeness. She even wanted to know what I was doing for New Year's because she had a party she was invited to with Corey and wanted to know if I'd attend. I'd love to, Crease, but I'm not sure it's the best idea, 'cause I'm sure you'll want to be alone with him after midnight. Oh no, please, I'm over that, she said. Honestly, you could join us again if you want. Corey would love to start the year with good company. Crease, I'm sorry, but I think I'm going to hang out here, I said. As much as I would have loved to join them for a lively social gathering, sharing laughter and good times with Kristen and her boyfriend, and reliving some of our past adventures, I didn't want to take the chance of a repeat of Kristen's insecurities. Plus, I still had a thread of hope that the new year would bring back some old times. "Ah, Mellies, please, I need you," she begged. "You said nothing's happening over there." "I know, Crease, I know, but I can't give up on this," I said. "Have fun with Corey, just call me after midnight," I said. Kristen seemed bummed I didn't take her up on her offer, but she didn't persist any longer. I eventually hung up feeling better about things, and I laid back to let the sun cook me. After about another 30 minutes or so and another dip to cool off, my father and Renee returned as expected. When the sliding door opened, it was Renee that came out first to greet me. "Hey, you're lookin' pretty comfortable," she joked. "There's no rules against this," I said, mocking my father's pledge to keep things normal. "I guess you're right, may I join you?" She smiled. "Please," I said back enlightened. "Where's Daddy?" "He's putting the shopping away," Renee said. "I probably should go help him, but I'll be out in a few, okay?" "Did he see me?" I asked automatically. "Yeah, he wasn't surprised," she giggled. Renee returned in the house as I lay in the sun, contemplating my next move. I couldn't decide if I should invite him into the pool with us, as I had done in a more carefree time that first summer, or if I should try a different approach to break through the lingering awkwardness. I wished Kristen was here to offer her usual bold advice. I tried to think what she would do in this situation, how bold she usually is. And suddenly, I stood up and found myself walking into the house, leaving my towel and everything behind. Entering the kitchen, I paused in the doorway, still in my swimsuit, a bold and playful glint in my eye. I watched my dad putting some cans in the pantry, a sense of quiet defiance bubbling up within me. I wanted to challenge the unspoken rules, to assert my presence in a way that couldn't be ignored, but without crossing any lines that would truly disrupt the fragile peace we were building. "Need any help?" I said, my voice carrying a hint of mischief, a subtle dare. Renee turned around from the refrigerator she had been filling, and a knowing smile touched her lips when she saw me, recognizing the familiar spark of my personality. My father's gaze met mine, a flicker of surprise, then amusement in his eyes. He seemed to understand the unspoken challenge. "I see you're back to your usual spirited self," he said with a slight, almost imperceptible smirk, acknowledging my playful audacity. "I'm sorry, does this bother you now?" I asked, a touch of mock innocence in my tone, pushing the boundary just a little. "Not if it doesn't bother you," he shot back slyly, a reciprocal challenge in his voice before adding, "Can you put this in the laundry room, please?" With that, he tossed me a box of fabric softener, a mundane task that brought us back to the present, yet the undercurrent of our exchange lingered. The wipers swished a frantic rhythm against the downpour, each swipe clearing a momentary window to the blurred world outside before the rain claimed it again. Sarah's knuckles were white, fused to the steering wheel, her grip a desperate anchor in the storm of her own mind. The argument, the accusation, the way his face had crumpled, it replayed on an endless loop, each word a fresh cut. Had she pushed too hard? Was she wrong? Her breath hitched, a silent sob escaping into the confined space of the car. The streetlights streaked past, meaningless beacons in a night that felt suddenly, terrifyingly empty. She just needed to get away, to outrun the echoes of that room, but they clung to her like the damp chill seeping into the car. The silence, now that the shouting had stopped, was deafening, amplifying the tremor in her hands. Every turn of the wheel felt heavy, each mile a further departure from a life she thought she understood. The weight of her words, sharp and irreversible, pressed down on her, leaving her utterly alone in the driving darkness. What had she done? The question hammered against her skull, a relentless, aching pulse. It was like a replay of my first time with Kristen, but this time it was another summer, and it was Renee, my most captivating future stepmom. We waded over to the pool steps, just as Kreese and I had done 2 years earlier, and our closeness deepened with every shared breath. Her touch was electric, a gentle exploration that sent shivers through me, and as she held me near, I felt a profound connection, a silent understanding passing between us. She was an amazing companion, and it made me ponder how she compared to my real mother. What it would be like to truly connect with her. That would be something else entirely. My super bitch of a mother was the least likely candidate to find herself in this situation, incapable of such open affection. Perhaps she needed a moment of genuine vulnerability. Either way, I didn't care about her anymore. I had Renee now, my new mom, and I cherished every moment we shared. When Renee and I shared a moment of profound contentment, a quiet understanding settling between us, it was only then that I noticed my father sitting in the chair by the table, partially dressed and lost in thought. He seemed to be in a world of his own, a private moment, when Renee smiled at him with a knowing glint in her eye and said, "You know, instead of watching the show, you could have starred in it." My dad said nothing in reply, only offered a subtle smile, his gaze holding a silent message that conveyed, "I know what you're doing," a mix of amusement and resignation in his eyes. All I knew was I was relieved to have made this much progress. I had shared deeply intimate moments with Renee twice now on my winter break, made up with Kristen, and also managed to get Renee on my side now in changing my father's stubborn mind once again. Plus, I had seen my father in a vulnerable state, shedding his usual guarded demeanor. If not fully engaging with us, at least he was acknowledging his own desires. I knew the next few hours would be very interesting, full of unspoken possibilities. After a moment of private reflection, my father jumped in the pool to cool off, but only after Renee and I had comfortably settled on lounges next to each other. My father didn't sunbathe with us after his dip. Instead, he returned to the house alone, no doubt trying to compose himself and regain his composure after the unexpected display of vulnerability. When he was gone, Renee and I talked about why he was being so stubborn, and Renee finally admitted she needed this situation to resolve. She wanted to enjoy us both together again, though unlike Kristen, she had no concrete plans and doubted we'd easily sway him. I was trying to stay more positive and had a clever plan of my own developing in my resourceful mind. I decided to keep it to myself for now, letting it simmer. As the sun set, Renee was ready to take a shower, and I told her I would join her. Delighted by my suggestion, we stepped in together, the warm water enveloping us, and found ourselves drawn into an embrace that spoke volumes. Our hands found each other, fingers intertwining, and a shared tenderness flowed between us. We whispered secrets and shared laughter, the steam rising around us like a comforting veil. It was a moment of pure connection, a silent promise of deeper understanding, as the water cascaded over us, washing away any lingering tension and leaving only a sense of peace and belonging. With freshly clean bodies and fresh smiles, we exited the bathroom, a playful glint in our eyes after I convinced Renee to embrace a moment of carefree abandon with me. As we made our way downstairs, we exchanged conspiratorial glances, giggling at our shared defiance. In the kitchen, my father was in shorts and a polo shirt preparing dinner. When his eyes found us, he rolled them good-naturedly and laughed. "I think this is a bit much." I couldn't help but notice how comfortable Melissa looked before, so free and uninhibited. "I thought I'd try a touch of that spirit," Renee said, referring to my earlier display of casual comfort in the house. "Yeah, Dad, you never said this was against the rules," I teased playfully, a grin spreading across my face as I plopped myself into my seat at the table. "No, I guess I didn't," he conceded with an odd, almost bewildered laugh, shaking his head slightly. Dinner was certainly an experience, with Renee and I embracing a playfully uninhibited spirit at the table. My father had trouble keeping a straight face. We were in our most relaxed, comfortable attire, pushing the boundaries of convention with a mischievous glint in our eyes. "What?" we teased him, enjoying his flustered amusement. "Pass the breast," I joked, referring to the chicken, but with a knowing glance at Renee. She snorted a laugh, nearly choking on her wine, her eyes sparkling with shared mirth. We helped my father clear the table, the clinking of plates filling the slight silence that followed our playful banter, and suggested a movie to watch after dinner. All the while, we maintained an air of nonchalant normalcy, as if this evening were just like any other. "Are you two planning on staying this way all night?" he said finally, his voice a mix of exasperation and reluctant amusement, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Till the year's over," I said with a wide, confident grin, leaning back in my chair. "Are you complaining, Daddy?" He said nothing, only shaking his head slowly, a soft chuckle escaping him, a sign that our playful rebellion was slowly winning him over. In the living room about an hour later, the soft glow of the television screen illuminated the room. My father was sitting on the love seat with Renee, and I was comfortably settled on the recliner. Renee and I were still in our chosen attire, embracing the relaxed, carefree spirit of the evening, and my father, though clearly intrigued, had initially refused to fully join our uninhibited state. The unspoken tension, the desire for him to let go and truly be with us, was palpable, and finally Renee spoke, her voice a gentle coaxing. "Oh, come on, Rich, join us," she said, nudging him playfully with her elbow, her eyes twinkling with invitation. "Join you what?" he asked, a hint of uncertainty in his voice, though his gaze lingered on us, a curious warmth in his expression. "You know," she teased, leaning closer, her voice a soft murmur. "Don't be the party pooper, we're having a naked New Year this year, remember," she joked, emphasizing the word naked with a light-hearted wink, implying a shedding of inhibitions rather than literal clothes. "Yeah, come on, Daddy, let loose," I laughed, my heart fluttering with anticipation, hoping he would finally surrender to the moment. "Embrace the spirit." "Oh, all right," he said, a sigh escaping him that sounded more like surrender than reluctance. I could feel his emotional walls, his carefully constructed reservations, beginning to weaken, and my heart leaped with a thrill of triumph and affection. Renee and I both watched, a shared, happy anticipation in our eyes as he removed his shirt, and then, with Renee's eager, gentle help, changed into more comfortable, relaxed loungewear, shedding the last vestiges of his daytime formality. The room seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief as he settled in. "That's much better, isn't it?" Renee said with a flirtatious grin, her voice a soft purr as she snuggled closer beside him, her head resting on his shoulder. The warmth of her presence seemed to melt away any lingering stiffness in him. "Happy now?" he laughed, a genuine, relaxed sound, as he gently wrapped an arm around her. "Oh yes," she said, snuggling even closer, her contentment radiating. "Just like all times, Rich, just like all times." There was a depth in her voice, a shared history that resonated between them, a comfort that spoke of years of unspoken understanding. That's when I decided to make my move, a sudden surge of longing propelling me forward. "Hey, no fair, I'm lonely over here," I exclaimed, a playful pout on my lips. And before he could utter a word, I got up from the recliner and, with a joyful abandon, plopped down on the other side of him, effectively sandwiching him between us. The soft cushions of the love seat enveloped us, and I felt the warmth of his body against mine, a comforting, thrilling sensation. He didn't tell me to stop, his arm instinctively tightening around Renee, but his gaze met mine, a complex mix of surprise and a deep, unspoken affection. I didn't want to push it, not yet, but the silent permission was a powerful affirmation. As we began watching a movie on HBO, the soft murmur of the television filling the comfortable silence, I noticed Renee's hand, almost imperceptibly, slide onto his thigh. Her touch was gentle, a light, comforting caress that spoke volumes, slowly moving higher up his leg. My gaze was fixed on her hand, then on his face, searching for a reaction. As her touch grew more intimate, I found myself instinctively cuddling closer against him, resting my head on his shoulder, my arm finding its way around his waist, feeling the solid warmth of his presence. The air between us thrummed with an unspoken current, a delicate dance of affection and longing. Renee's hand, with a tender grace, found his, her fingers intertwining with his own in a silent, profound connection. A shiver of anticipation ran through me, a silent prayer that his emotional walls, the last vestiges of his resistance, would finally come down. I watched, breathless, as he didn't pull away, his fingers gently clasping hers, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. The unspoken understanding in the room was electric, a powerful current of shared emotion. I felt a profound sense of yearning, a deep, resonant ache in my chest, a longing for this moment to deepen, to become something more. I reached out, my hand finding Renee's, and she gently shifted, allowing my fingers to intertwine with theirs. A silent, powerful affirmation of our shared bond, a circle of warmth and connection. He didn't stop it, his hand remaining intertwined with ours, a silent acceptance of our collective affection. Then, Renee, with her free hand, gently turned his face towards hers, her eyes filled with a tender, profound emotion, and she began to kiss him. My stomach fluttered with a rush of butterflies, a wave of longing washing over me as I watched their lips meet, a silent yearning for my turn. When their kiss finally broke, a soft, lingering moment, I took my free hand and, with a surge of courage and hope, gently turned his face towards mine. I prayed with every fiber of my being that he wouldn't stop this, that he would meet my gaze with the same tenderness. He didn't. His lips met mine, soft at first, then deepening into a passionate embrace, a kiss that spoke of years of unspoken feelings, of a profound connection that had been simmering beneath the surface since that unforgettable day by the shore. It felt like an eternity had passed, far too long, since we had last shared such a moment. When our kiss finally broke, a shared breath between us, he returned his attention to Renee again, his gaze lingering on her with a deep affection, and in that moment of shared intimacy, I knew it was time. I made the move I had been planning all day, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilarating anticipation. I slid off the couch, drawn by an irresistible pull, and nestled close to him. I leaned in, sharing a tender kiss, then another, as Renee's hand gently released mine, allowing me to deepen the embrace. Keeping an eye on my dad, his kiss with Renee softened, and he threw his head back with a contented sigh, clearly wanting the moment to linger. The profound connection I felt in that shared space was wonderful, as I allowed myself to be fully present, savoring every part of the intimacy. Just as I felt completely enveloped, I felt Renee's warm cheeks against mine, and I was happy to shift, letting her draw close for her turn. Renee leaned in, her lips meeting his, a silent understanding passing between them as she absorbed the warmth of his affection. Then she pulled back slightly, and we both shared a lingering gaze with him, our eyes conveying a deep, unspoken bond. We both leaned in, offering tender kisses to his cheeks and forehead, a shared expression of love as he watched us. His girlfriend and his daughter, both showering him with affection. What man could want more? As we felt him sigh deeply, a wave of contentment washing over him, we almost bumped heads in our eagerness to comfort him, and Renee let me win, allowing me to be the first to offer a soft embrace. Pulling him into a tight hug, I felt a surge of overwhelming emotion, a profound sense of belonging. I wanted to savor it all, but I leaned back, letting Renee offer her own comforting embrace as I absorbed the warmth he gave me. It was a delicious feeling, and I missed it when it wasn't there. After he settled into a state of peaceful relaxation, Renee and I exchanged soft glances and tender smiles, our hands finding his as we sat beside him. His smile was wider than I'd ever seen it, a testament to the happiness we all shared. Renee and I saw no reason to stop the feeling of profound connection as I shifted closer to her, taking her hand in mine once again, tracing the lines of her palm with pleasure, the lingering warmth of our shared moment still vibrant. My fingers found hers, intertwining them, and hers found mine, as we simply held each other close beside my father, taking our time in the quiet intimacy. After about 10 minutes of gentle conversation and shared glances, my father's gaze grew soft and attentive again, and I wasted no time in leaning in to offer him a tender kiss. He didn't pull away. As our lips met, I almost cried, overwhelmed by the depth of emotion. I never thought I'd feel such a profound connection again, and I couldn't help thinking of Kristen and how badly I wished she'd be here to share in this unique bond. As my father put his hands on my hips, he gently pulled me closer, a comforting embrace that felt like coming home. He took a moment to press a soft kiss to each of my temples, a gesture I'm sure he'd been longing to share all day. Renee began to kiss him, then turned to kiss me, her presence a warm, inclusive comfort as we all held each other. My fingers still intertwined with hers, a silent affirmation of our shared affection. When I reached a peak of emotional intensity, my father was still holding me close, and I wasn't sure if I should linger in the embrace or let Renee have a turn at holding him. I decided to be selfish and stayed nestled against him. "Oh," I whispered, a gasp of pure contentment. "Hold Emmy closer," I murmured. "Ah," Renee sighed, a soft sound of peace as she rested her head on my hand. "Hold me, Daddy," I whispered, the words filled with a deep, heartfelt longing. With that last word, I felt my father tighten his embrace. A second wave of profound affection washing over me as the sensation brought me over the edge of pure joy a second time as well. "Oh, yes. I breathed, falling gently against him, Renee at our side, her cheeks flushed with emotion. The remainder of the evening went quickly. The three of us spent the final hours of the year cuddling in a close embrace, tangled together in comfort and kissing every now and again. As the clock struck midnight, my father's hand found mine once again, a silent promise of closeness, someplace I hoped it would be for most of this new year. I only wished Kristen was with me. We all wished that. And then the phone rang. What a story I'd have for her.